Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon all of us. It's a really pleasant atmosphere today. The weather is fine, and once again, I welcome all of you to this program. As has been told by Sister Rabia and also by Sister Uzma Ausaf, today we are going to discuss a very serious but interesting topic. Hopefully, we all will learn something new from this session. So my intention is to first to take the presentation in two ways. Initially, I will be presenting what I want to say. First of all, what exactly is happening in the world, and whether this population explosion as such all over the world, whether this narration is true, and what is the after effect of this kind of narration. That is one thing. And coming to India, how this narration has been politically used, and what are the real true factors or the real data or the real situation. And then I will also try to throw some light on what Islam says regarding having children and, the number of children and all these things. And then after that, this will be for this audience and also for those who are going to watch this program when we upload it in YouTube. But exclusively for those who have assembled here, those who have taken the pains to come here, we will have an interactive session also, which will not be recorded, so that all of you can feel free to ask any question. No question is a nonsense question or stupid question. Every question leads us to learn something new for all of us. So let's begin in the name of the Almighty. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala Rasulil Ameen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Population growth in India, debunking myths, rejecting Islamophobia. This is a topic that we have to deal with, but even though the topic says in India, only when we have a small understanding of what is happening across the world related to this topic, we will be able to understand what is happening in India in a better way. So, the title has two important words. One is myths. You all know the meaning of the word myth. What is a myth? Something that is not fully real, fully true. There might be some element of truth in it, but not fully real and unknown origin. That is the main aspect of it. Who said it? Nobody will be, or from where you got the data without any support of, valid data. If somebody is saying something, that it goes from person to person, and from one person to the other person, the myth entirely changes. So, different versions of the same myth also we see. And debunking, you all know the meaning of the word. To debunk means to expose the falseness in it, the hollowness of it, the lack of truth and honesty in that kind of argument. So, we will deal with that. And also finally, we also have to think about how we can address this kind of narration. So, what is a narration or what is a myth? The myth, number one, across the world is, all over the world, there is population explosion. The world population is increasing. The other day, myself and Shaisa Rafa Saiba, we attended an interfaith discussion. In that program, one very prominent personality, he was a professor, retired professor, a person who believes in like non-violence and all that, who claims to believe in. He was telling me at the table when we were having lunch that, madam, the world has 30 crore more population than the earth can accommodate. That is why wars are happening. He said this in the context of discussing about Palestine, in the context of what is happening in Palestine. He is, as a belief, he is saying that the mass killing of innocent children in Palestine is happening because it has to happen, because the earth has to reduce its population. Can you imagine? That too, not an illiterate person or not a barbaric person who was telling this, an educated person who believes himself to be a believer of non-violence. So actually, in reality, is this true? Is there population explosion in the world? If we try to debunk this, we will understand that this argument or this narrative is largely exaggerated. And it is based on some outdated assumptions, and it is being imposed by the capitalist nations, Western countries. And the reality is population is increasing, but also the birth rate is declining everywhere. Actually, this narrative is used by the developed nations, against the third world developing countries and the immigrants, and also to spread Islamophobia against the immigrants. So the world is overcrowded, there is too much of population. So this we have to understand that this is the purposefully this message, this narrative has been created by the Western world, by the developed nations, and they are telling the developing nations, you have to use family planning methods to reduce the population of your country. Whereas they themselves are promoting their people to have more children. And they are giving many, grants and things like that, so that the people get encouraged to have more children. So this is also associated with the spread of Islamophobia. And their argument is that resources are dwindling. As a child, I have seen this picture of, the video of a fish tank, a small fish tank. They put one fish in that, and then the fish is, happily moving around, and then they put more fish, and then the fish tank breaks. Nowadays, there are more such images and videos to prove that the earth cannot accommodate these many number of people. And the resources are getting over. It is true that, some resources are finite. As you use, they will get over, they will get finished. But 10 years back, the sources of energy, and now the sources of energy, if you understand, we know that with the advancement of science and technology, people learn the use of resources more efficiently, right? Now people know how to use resources more efficiently, and also scientists are finding new resources. Renewable energy. As for example, small example which we all can understand is the solar. Earlier we were depending only on electricity produced from water reservoirs, right? But now we all know that, people have learned, science has advanced, and people are producing electricity from the sunlight, which is free for everyone. God has created it free. And it is freely available for everyone. You can't cover it for anyone. If you want to put a solar system in your house, maybe, monthly, if you have to pay 10,000 rupees as the bill, electricity bill, you just have to pay the minimum bill. And in many parts, especially in Kerala and all, people are now changing into solar system and selling electricity to the electricity board. So new forms of energy people are, as people advance, as people progress, as science and technology progress, we know that necessity is the mother of invention. Whenever there is a need, God has created human beings with that intellect and that wisdom to find a means of living, to find new sources of energy. Another thing is food production is not sufficient. This also you can see across the world, this narration. Now the food production is not sufficient, so you people have to reduce your population. But according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, global food production has increased by 20% since 2000, while population growth has been around 15%. Food production increases, this is data. Food production increases 20% and the population growth is only 15%. So the new methods and technology in food production also, in the field of agriculture also, has resulted in the increase in the production, and people also are learning, and there are new methods of preservation also. It's not like seasonal. You produce potato or tomato in this season and then you can preserve it for the whole year. And artificially created environment. They create artificial environment and atmosphere and create the products throughout the year. That also is happening across the world. So we understand that it is only a propaganda. See, you travel across the world, across the breadth and width of America, USA, UK, Saudi Arabia, and even India. If you travel across the breadth and width of the country, you can still see many hectares of barren lands, which are not cultivated, which are not explored on how they can be utilized. I challenge this. You take a train. Just like Mahatma Gandhi traveled across the country, you travel. Only in certain pockets you can see crowded areas. But otherwise, we see vast barren lands. So this is again a propaganda imposed by the capitalists, like a fear. A fear has been created on the third world countries, and they are dictating the third world countries to control the population. So actually the real problem is, as Mahatma Gandhi said once, and it is still applicable, the earth has enough for everyone's need. The earth has enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. So we just need to follow the simple principle put forward by the Quran to address this issue of shortage of resources or even food. What is that? The Holy Quran, chapter number 7, verse number 31. وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. You can eat and drink. You eat and drink. You don't have to starve. But what do you have to do? وَلَا tusrifu. Never be extravagant. Innahu, certainly He. He means Allah, your Creator. La yuhibbul musrifin. He doesn't like those who are extravagant. So, the actual problem is not lack of resources, lack of food, but the resources and food is concentrated and consumed by a small minority. Less than 20% is consuming or confiscating and utilizing for their own purpose 80% of the energy and food or whatever it is that is created or that is available on the earth. This is the problem. Another thing, food and energy, everything that is being wasted also in this world. You go to the star hotels and ask them to show you the place where they dump the waste food. Then you will understand how much food gets wasted. See, it is like, saying that you get into the train, metro train, you got into the train morning, you are going to your office, and you are comfortably seated. And maybe there is place for 2-3 people to sit next to you, but still you feel that, Aram se, I can sit comfortably if nobody comes and sits here. And whenever the train stops, your feeling is nobody should get into and sit near me, right? Many people have this feeling. And some people even comment, you got out of your home and you have already caught the train and you are inside the train, and still you will comment that, where are all these people going early morning? Subha. You comment, right? You must have heard people commenting inside the bus. When you see a crowded bus stop and many people want to get into the bus, or when many people want to get into the train, people sitting inside comment against the people who also want to catch the train or bus. Same mentality. You are born to this world and you are utilizing the resource created by your Lord, your Creator, and you don't want others to utilize it. The next generation, and also people of other countries, people of other communities. One simple example which we all can understand. See, the problem is not just to understand that it is not the lack of resources or kammi, resources are less. See, earlier when we were children, I am now 63. When we were children, I have seen in every family, they buy 1 kilo fish or 1 kilo meat or 1 kilo vegetable, and it was enough for 20 to 30 people in the family, mostly joint families. But now the same 1 kilo they buy, but it is being consumed by 2 or maximum 3 people. That is why somebody said there are 2 problems in the world. One is lack of food and the other one is excess of food. And both create a lot of health problems. So, the solution actually is sustainable development and resource management, and distributing it to everyone, not reducing the number of children or the population. So, whatever after effects or whatever problems we are facing is not because of the increase in the number of population, increase in the people, but you are using the resources. You are living according to your own wishes and wills, and you are creating fasad in the world. That is what Surah Ar-Rum, chapter number 30, verse number 41. Allah Ta'ala says, Zahar al-fasadu fil barri wal bahri bima kasabat aydin nas. You are creating corruption. The fasad can be translated as corruption, evil, mischief. Many interpreters have given these words. Has appeared in the land. Corruption, evil or mischief has appeared in the land and the sea for what mankind's hands have earned. So, you are creating problems for yourselves and creating mischief, and that is a problem, and not the kammi or the scarcity of resources. Resources are there. Still untapped resources are there. I challenge. Still untapped, unused. There are more other means to find out resources and energy. Now coming to the Indian scenario. So taking all these, utilizing all these narrations across the world, in India, it has been used for a political purpose also. And it is being utilized as a stick to beat a particular community, and that is the Muslim community. And there is a fear that has been created that Muslim population is increasing, and this narration pops up again and again in the political scenario in the social scenario, and nowadays in the social media also, it pops up in media, cinema, everywhere. And the intention of the people who bring out this narration or this argument is to create fear and hostility among the people, and to marginalize a particular community, that is Muslims, and to spread Islamophobia. So Muslims are, the myth is like Muslims are responsible for India's population growth. They will soon become a majority. The problem is not that, Muslims are increasing in number. The second part is being more stressed. What is that? They will soon become the majority. So, in this context, if possible, people can read. There was one article by Tarushi Ashwini in The Wire. The title of the article is "Blaming Muslims for India's Population Growth is Purely Hindutva Propaganda." That is the headline of the article. It might be available online. You can read it. So the propaganda is not based on reality and data as such. See, first of all, we all know that in India there is no official census occurred after 2011. Anything officially we can rely on the 2011 census only. According to the 2011 census, what is the percentage of Muslim population in India? 14.2%. And what is the percentage of Hindus? 79.8%. And there is a data collected by the Pew Research Center, and they project that India's population has more than tripled in the last 6 decades, from 361 million in 1951 to more than 1.2 million in 2011. Studying all the censuses from 1951, this organization has come up with the conclusion or the projection that it has, in the last 6 decades, it has tripled. It has increased 3 times more. Who is responsible? It is not the responsibility of the Muslims. All the major religions rose. And they say that Hindus rose from 304 million to 966 million. Muslims' growth is 35 million to 172 million. And the Christians' growth is 8 million to 28 million. And regarding Muslims and Christians, we have to also note that born Christians and Muslims might be there, but there could also be people who have accepted these religions from the Hindu community. So actually the growth must be more if we consider this aspect also. And this is a constitution right. Anyone can accept any religion. This can happen vice versa also. A Muslim born in a Muslim family, as he grows, if he wants, he can, or he or she can accept Christianity or Hinduism as per the constitution right. So from 1951 to 2011, major contribution to population explosion was by whom? It was by the Hindu community. We have no objection to it. We don't worry about it. We have to feel happy whenever a new child is born. It is a good news for us. Whether it is in the Muslim family, Hindu family or Christian family. We as Muslims, if you believe in Islam, as a Muslim, you cannot feel unhappy about the cry of a newborn baby in any family. Because the cry of a newborn baby is an asset. It is a future of the nation. It's an asset to the country. It is an asset to the society. And it is our responsibility to bring up that child to be a contributing member of the society. So it is a Hindu population. It is a Hindu families which produced 5 times more than the Muslims from 1951 to 2011. And after 2011, there are other data available, but not the census. There is a book titled Love Jihad and Other Fictions by, it was co-authored by Srinivasan Jain, Mariam Alavi and Supriya Sharma. Some of you must have read that book, right? Otherwise, it's a worth reading book in this context. In that book, chapter number 2 deals with this population cheese only. So, they are saying that this is the oldest theory against some Muslims in the country. And it dates back to 1909. More than a century ago, it started. And at that time, there was one book written by Lieutenant Colonel Upendranath Mukherjee. And the title of the book is A Dying Race. And in that book, he said that he meant to be Hindus. We Hindus are also a decaying race. We are a decaying race. We are on the verge of extinction. I think that is a word you people will better understand. So it sounded as though the entire Hindu community is going to extinct within 5 or 10 years. And we all know, after more than 1.5 centuries also, in India, the Hindu community is the majority. So, the same narrative is being repeated again and again over the years, especially during elections. Whenever there is election, along with the same, there are 4 or 5 topics for these people, and this is one of them which they take when all other astras, during the last election also, when all other astras are failing, they took up this also. So, even after a century later, that's what I was telling, in India, about 80% are Hindus and only 14.2% are Muslims. In 2000, some examples, again and again this narrative coming up, this myth coming up, or this myth being utilized for political purpose or to create to this hatred and hostility between communities. In 2002 is a very important year in the history of India. What happened in Gujarat, we all know. Modi was ruling there. At that time, these relief camps which were created, those tents in which Muslim families live, fleeing all these, religious violence, he commented that these relief camps are child producing centers. Who commented? The present Prime Minister, who was the Chief Minister of Gujarat at that time. In 2021, Organizer, you all know Organizer, right? It's a RSS publication. The Organizer, they accuse in one article, it accused Muslims of carrying out population jihad. We have so many types of jihad, land jihad, love jihad, and this is another jihad, population jihad. And in 2022, Yogi, it was like he didn't mention the name of the community, it was like a dog whistle for him, but it was understood. He said that this increase, this growth of this population, the population of this community has a negative impact on religious demography. Something which we cannot understand. How is it going to affect the religious demography? And after a while, it will create chaos and anarchy. How chaos and anarchy will be created if one population is a little larger in number and another is not? It is not coming anywhere near even 50%. And regarding that community, he is creating this fear. In 2019, the Prime Minister himself, Modi, he was a Prime Minister at that time, during his Independence Day speech, he referred to those with small families as patriotic. Those with small families are responsible citizens, he said. Times of India has brought out an article. It's a very good article. The title of the article was "What the Data Tells Us: Are Muslims Responsible for India's Population Explosion?" This article is also worth reading. And finally, there are so many such examples of political responsible chief ministers, prime minister, this type of people coming with this type of comments and narrations. And finally, during the 2024 election time, I think it was during the third phase of the election campaign that the Prime Minister, referring to Muslims as intruders who have more children, he said. And it was obvious, it was clear which community he is referring to. And and then in social media also it is being. And there were organizations, NGOs working only for this. And they organized campaigns and then campaigns for compulsory sterilization of this community men and women. Just like in, when the street dogs increase, the health department takes this measure of sterilizing the dogs. So, creating human beings even worse than street dogs, and there were campaigns organized by some NGOs advocating compulsory sterilization, and then in social media they use false propaganda. One such example I am telling you. Sushil Tiwari, he said that Muslims marry multiple times and produce children, and he also said routine propaganda of 4 wives and 25 children. Muslim families have 4 wives and 25 children. But the government data itself shows that Muslims are below even Hindus when it comes to polygamy. Muslims are below Hindus when it comes to the ratio of polygamy. That is based on the data of the government. And so just as the former Minorities Commission Chairman, Dr. Safarul Islam Khan said, their policy is to twist anything if it may be used to beat Muslims. So they twist the reality, they twist the numbers, they twist the data and present it in such a way so that it will affect the Muslims adversely. In social media, as I told you, we can see such messages continuously, again and again, such pictures. One such social media post, I think it came in Twitter, 18th January 2020, by a right-wing person. He posted the picture of a Muslim man riding a scooter with his family. There were 6 members of the family, 6 children and his wife, and the man riding a scooter. And along with that, the message that he put was, please pay your taxes on time to ensure this family gets all government benefits in time. The harm is done. What does the message indicate? See the hard-earned money of us Hindus. And we pay the tax, and who is getting the benefit? These people, these kind of people. And then fact checkers, Alhamdulillah, in the modern times, this is one advantage. We can check from where the picture is and from where the message originates. And fact checkers found out that this picture is from a Bangladesh family. It is from Bangladesh, not even from India. See, we can ask, even if it is from India, so what? Even if it is from India, so what? So this type of many xenophobic messages we can see, and they themselves, their concern is not population explosion. In India, people who speak against this having more children, their concern is not the increase in population. Because just like in 2015, Sakshi Maharaj urged the Hindu women to produce at least 4 children to protect the Hindu religion. We have no objection. All the best. So, protecting a religion by producing more number of children is not possible. We all know that. If a religion has to be protected as it is, in its original form, there should be some integrated strength for that religion. See, even if all Muslims are not practicing Muslims, Islam will survive because of the Quran and the message of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This confidence is what we have to develop in any religious community. So we need not have to be afraid of how many number of people are there in the other community. So the problem is they are blinded by prejudices and hatred, and actually in reality in India the population growth rate of Muslims has been declining since 1971 from 30.9% during 1961-71 to 24.6% during 2001-11, that census period. So actually the earlier there was a little growth rate was a little more among the Muslim community, but now it is coming down. And there are a lot of contradictions in the arguments also. For example, in the interim budget speech in 2024, just before the election, in fact, it was whatever happened in the parliament just before the election was in supportive of the coming election for the right wing. So in this interim budget speech, Nirmala Sitaram said the government will form a high-powered committee for an extensive consideration of the challenges arising from fast population growth and demographic changes. So she expressed concern over the fast population growth. This actually she did without any, there was no supportive data. She mentioned no demographic data was brought or referred to, but she simply said like a speech. But her own ministry had said in the economic survey 2018-19, her own ministry, and it was tabled by her in the parliament, that economic survey says India is set to witness a sharp slowdown in population growth in the next 2 decades. So you see, the same minister, one speech says one thing, and the written document based on a study and economic survey says another thing, and she herself tabled it. So this is one contradiction. The population projection at the national and state level up to 2041. Projection means that prediction based on the present situation. That shows that India has entered the next stage of demographic transition, with population set to slow sharply in the next 2 decades. So it is coming down in India. The decadal growth rate decline of Muslims is more pronounced than that of Hindus. This decadal growth slowdown in population growth is more, the ratio is more among the Muslims. One more article which I would like to refer to, you people can read, in the article titled Fact Check Old Data, New Spin in PM EAC Report. it was published on 10th May 2024. It was written by Banjot Kaur. It says that the BJP leaders are also unscientific and wrong. Based on data and the contradiction I already said. And in this article, she is, also bringing out another problem with all these claims, that is, it is unscientific. All analysis suggests that the total fertility rate among Muslims as across other religions has declined in the past few decades. So, population growth is based on the fertility rate also. So, you have to assume that you can calculate or you can assess the growth or decline based on whether this fertility rate is increasing or decreasing. What do you mean by fertility rate? Per a woman, an average of per woman how many children? That is called as the fertility rate. Moreover, as a reply to a question in Rajya Sabha, the question was raised by John Brittas on 19th July 2022. The Minister of State for Health, Bharti Praveen Pawar, claimed that the government has succeeded in achieving population control. Then why again all these narratives? So the government itself claims that they have succeeded. And in the last 10 years, if you analyze, there was no parliamentary reply identifying Muslims as being the problem. Oh, Muslims are growing so much, this much, okay? There was never even a parliamentary reply. If it is there, it would have come as a reply to any of the questions in the parliament. So, but it happens, and it repeatedly happens in political rallies, and they are very vocal in political rallies and street speeches and in social media and also in films. And this is also something to be noted. The United Nations Population Fund said in November 2022 that the good news I underline, the good news is that India's population growth appears to be stabilizing. Whether it is a good news or not, I will tell later. But all these studies show that India is getting stabilized in its population. It is coming down. So the problem is not population explosion, but the agenda to demonize and remove the whole community. Justify ethnic cleansing. Because why? Why people are against Islam? Usually people are, especially young girls like you, always ask why there is so much hatred towards Muslims. The main reason is, the underlying reason is, Islam in its basic nature, it has the capacity to remove all types of social and economic disparities like caste system upon which the entire right-wing politics survives. The right-wing politics cannot survive without these disparities and caste system. And Islam as an ideology is a hindrance to that. So that is why so much of hatred against this community. Another myth that is being spread is the infiltrating neighbors from the neighboring countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan. People come and they crowd and they take away the resources of our country, Rohingya. And here also there is no clear evidence, and some misleading and manipulated data are circulated. One example is that of West Bengal's. There is a data which says West Bengal's Muslim population is now more than 30%. Whereas even before partition, Bengal never had Muslim population more than 27%. So this type of wrong data, and also they say that because of these immigrants and they coming and occupying, Adivasis, they are declining. The Mulvasis, the number of Adivasis, that is declining, that population. It is actually not due to the Muslim immigrants or anything like that, but they are moving away to the cities in search of jobs, because their habitats where they were living, especially forest areas, due to developments and constructions, road, bridges, and all these things, the forests are shrinking, and means of living, food, everything, nothing is there. So they are coming out and they are changing and they are shifting to cities. That is the only problem there. And cities are overcrowded, of course. That is there with every city across the world. That is not because, just by looking at the city, we can't say this country is populous or this country has overpopulation. It happens because the cities have better facilities, hospitals, education facilities, jobs, and because of that, people move, leaving their villages. That is why those barren lands and all. So what the government has to do is provide those facilities, at least to the minimum requirement, to the people who live in villages also. So, and population, actually, experts say that population growth is not determined by religion. It is actually determined all over the world by the fertility rate, the mortality rate, poverty, and education, access to medical facility, and so on. See, according to Poonam Muthreja, she is the executive director of the Population Foundation of India. She says that for the first time in 2022, there was negative growth of 8,50,000 less people than the previous year. Compared to 2021, in 2022, Indian population has come down. So, and she says that it is achieving the replacement level fertility. So, poverty is one of the reasons I said. And that is why Bihar, one of the poorest states in India, has the highest fertility rate. And Assam Muslim population growing also because of this. And in Assam, it's not just a Muslim population of other communities also are growing. And fertility rate was more among Muslims also because of this reason. And now it is coming down. And the total fertility rate of Muslims in UP is 3.10, while it is only 1.86 in Kerala. Education, lack of poverty, financial, upliftment. So, as pointed out by Banchot Kaur in her article, actually the demographic history of the world proves that population civilization is most closely linked to women's education and socio-economic factors, not religion. See, some of the Muslim majority regions in India, like Jammu and Kashmir, Lakshadweep, and they have lowest fertility rates in India compared to the other states, lower than even the national average. So it has nothing to do with religion. And now let us quickly go through, analyze what Islam says regarding having children, population. So as I already told, children is considered as a blessing. Children are considered as a blessing in Islam. And it is considered as a good news. There is one verse in the Quran, chapter number 16, verse number 58. وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. What does it mean? Whenever one of them is given the good news, bushira means good news, of a baby girl, his face grows gloomy as he suppresses his rage. He feels angry and his face goes gloomy. It happened before Islam in Arabia. Quran is quoting that situation and criticizing and warning people, you shouldn't do that. So, having children is considered not as a problem, but as a good news. And there is no limit of numbers. You should have only this many number of children, or there is no insistence that you should have this many number of. Both are not there, not even for marriage. Islam encouraged getting married and having children, but no limit is kept for at this age you should compulsorily get married. Islam never said like that. As per the opinion of most of the scholars, family planning is allowed, and especially considering the spirit of the Quran, the teachings of the Quran, to breastfeed your children for minimum 2 years. So that itself automatically, if one follows that instruction, automatically the gap between children will be at least more than 2 years, 3 years. So for this purpose, one can have planning, or even for some other purposes like the health of the mother and all. But complete sterilization and deciding on your own not to have children, and infanticide especially. In those days, during the Jahiliyyah period, when a newborn child is a girl, that child is buried alive. But now, in modern world, and where people don't follow the teachings of Islam, what they do is, the clinics and hospitals are the slaughtering houses. Operation theaters have become slaughtering houses of newborn children. That is why in the Tilawat-e-Quran we heard this verse, chapter number 6, verse number 151. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ. You don't kill your children for fear of poverty, because I am the one to provide for you and your children. So there is no clear ban on contraception, but you shouldn't unnecessarily delay things. I have the experience of one of my friends. Earlier she used to delay unnecessarily, and finally what happened was, after a particular period, she went for treatment, and again she was wanting to have children, and that time she was not getting pregnant. It happens with many people. So unnecessary delay is not encouraged, fearing that you will not be able to take care of the child, or you will not be able to provide for the child. So the wisdom is not in stopping births, but in providing space, being more inclusive, being less greedy and selfish. So definitely, automatically, the provisions will come if we work together, and the best of resources in the world is the human resource, which if India can boast of that. Out of every 5 youth in the world, one is in India. So India has 40% of India's population is youth. Another matter, earlier I said the good news bolke UN said na. Now studies show that by 2060 India will be a country of elderly people. If we go at this rate, and if we follow the drastic measures of family planning, India will be a country of elderly people like China and Japan. In China and Japan, what happened? Especially, for example, China followed the policy of one child from 1979 to 2016. And then what happened? Gender imbalance. Because all these measures are anti-woman, because if you have a choice of having only one child, you will go for girl or boy. Mostly people go for boy. And already in India, we have this, out for every 1,000 man, 964 something women are there. So it is less. It's not barabar. So there was gender imbalance, and there were, sex selective abortions and human rights violations happened in China because of this forced sterilization and abortions, and the shrinking of workforce, increased burden on social security. People have to take care of the elderly people, and so they realized that it was wrong, going against nature, natural law. In the long run, it will do more harm than good, they realized, and now they are encouraging people to increase the birth, have more children, and incentives are even given now from the government for more children. Japan also same. In Japan, it was because of the, due to the war and the fertility rate came down. It was because of that. So again, Japan now it is attracting foreign workers, giving incentives. So let us be more sensitive and let us not fall a prey into all these arguments. And whoever gets children, again I'm saying it's a good news. And we can't, but at the same time, we can't support all these unscrupulous birth controls. And what we can do, see, when these type of narrations are going on, I will quickly wind up. What we can do is, the advantage of the Gen Z, the new generation is, you have fact-checking facilities, the same AI you can also utilize, which they are using. And the same tools can be utilized, like if you are pricked by if a thorn pricks in your leg or somewhere, you use another thorn to pull it out, right? So the same tools that are utilized to manipulate data, to have propaganda narration, create narrations and do propaganda, the same tool can be used, and more researches has to be done. And as Muslims, it is our duty to stand for people. Whether you are a Muslim, Hindu, Christian, or whichever community. Kuntum khairu ummatan ukhrijatu linnas. You have to stand for people, and you have to work for people, and you have to accept everyone, and you have to, the governments, we should advocate that it is the government's duty is not to control birth in unscrupulously, but to provide facilities and find means to accommodate everyone so that the future of the nation will be safe. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.